Let's bring in Leela Jacinto. Leela, of course, our international affairs editor. Leela, good evening to you. We've heard what's come in Brussels, but of course there's been a conversation between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin since then, a phone call. What can you tell us about that?
Well, they had a phone call. There's a lot happening. This phone call came after Ukraine conducted its major drone attacks deep inside Russia and attacked the bridge linking Crimea, Russian-controlled Crimea, to the mainland. What came out of this meeting was basically Putin telling Trump that Russia will retaliate for Ukraine's attacks. Putin is calling this a terrorist attack. I mean, Russia, in which case, is conducting many terrorist attacks in Ukraine as well. And Trump said that peace between these two countries is a long way off. Now, if you remember, I mean, Trump came to office promising to end the war within a day. And he's been pushing for a peace plan. They have, even ceasefires haven't held. The two countries announce a ceasefire. Sometimes Russia unilaterally announces a ceasefire, but they're never held. So basically, the two things that came out of this is that Russia is going to respond, and that, peace is a long way off, which is why what happens in Brussels today and tomorrow at NATO headquarters is very important, because this war does not seem likely to end very quickly.
Zelensky trying to get the NATO bloc to put pressure on to Russia to move towards peace. Of course, that's been called for many times without any actual advance happening. But what we're seeing from the EU NATO states is this call about arms manufacturing, which looks, if I'm reading between the lines correctly, and you will correct me if I'm wrong, which looks like in some way Ukraine's being brought into kind of the EU defence mechanism.
Correct. So this was announced after there was a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. So this group comprises of more than 50 countries. This includes the 32 NATO member states, as well as other countries from Asia and Africa, to support Ukraine. Now, what was announced over here was that what they call, it's a working title, it's called the Ramstein Investment to Industries Initiative, okay? It's called Ramstein because the Ukraine Contact Group was formed on the Ramstein military base, which is a NATO base in Germany. This initiative is basically, to put it very easily, a win-win strategy, okay? This involves joining Ukraine's weapons production capabilities, and we know that Ukraine has good weapons production capabilities because we saw their manufactured drones, their domestically manufactured drones, being put to use in Russia. It's matching the Ukrainian production capacity with European needs to have more arms capabilities. So this will see an exchange wherein Ukraine's allies, primarily European allies, will invest in producing arms. This includes long-range weapon systems in Ukraine, as well as European allies paying Ukrainian companies to manufacture in their own countries. And as you said, effectively, this is integrating systems together. And all this money will also, so the weapons that are created under this initiative will go to Ukraine. And the money for these weapons will also go to Ukraine. So in effect, Ukraine will be building its own weapon systems, but the deficit in the money and the funding that they need to fight this war with Russia will be met with this initiatives. So this is the plan. And what is just last thing, what is unsaid over here is how much of Trump's policy is driving all of this. One is Europe needs to advance its production capacities because the US has stated that it is losing interest in funding and supporting Ukraine. And two, Donald Trump tends to look at everything in terms of numbers and business. And this is exactly a sort of a Trump agenda being put into practice in Europe.
Pete Hegseth, the US Defense Secretary, Trump's Defense Secretary, didn't turn up. And this is, I think, the first time that someone in his position hasn't been at this kind of meeting. Was he missed?
Well, the short answer, no. It was very symbolic, the fact that this Ukraine Defense Contact Group was formed by Hegseth's predecessor, Lloyd Austin, under the Biden administration. And these meetings that have been taken place have always been chaired by the U.S. Now, Hegseth did attend this contact group meeting in February. This was barely a month after Trump was inaugurated into office. And a few weeks ago, Hegseth actually handed over the leadership of this contact group to the UK and Germany. So in a sense, the fact that he was not there should not have been a surprise, but it is absolutely very symbolic. The symbolism of this is that Washington is basically handing over to Europe its defense responsibilities and the responsibility with supporting Ukraine, which has a war on the continent.